when we think of COVID and this last year, I know often I immediately think of the losses involved, and the things that were hard, really even the limits from this past year. Um, I don't think it takes too many limits before we realize the nature that we have in our humanness. Like we don't want limits, we don't like limits, but it's been a year of limits, it's been a year of loss. Um, and in those times I think like those things are blaring, but when we know the Lord and when we trust him and we live our life knowing that he's in control and we're walking with him, we have the opportunity not only to look, I guess, at the losses and the limits that we have on us, but to take a look at the opportunities that God has given and the doors that he has provided. Yes, limited in some ways, but in other ways, how wide open has some other opportunities we honestly would have never tried. We would not be sitting here right now meeting and visiting miles and miles away if not for COVID. So it's also been an opportunity. One of the scriptures early on in the pandemic that kind of hit me was in Isaiah, where he says, "I'm doing a new thing, and do you not perceive it?" God's doing some things that are very new. To be honest, about a year ago in March, April, when Good News Club closed for the year, and we realized we weren't probably going to open again. Zoom was immediately an option, but it's not one that I wanted to do. I had a few reasons for this. I was very hesitant. I really didn't want to. Partially because I love being face to face so much, and I knew you couldn't recreate that. We can go through a screen, but I know if they're not there with you, there is something lost, and I was afraid that loss was too great to try to do something with it. I was afraid that the kids would be too screened out because of school and that they just wouldn't listen at all. I was afraid that the connections that are so crucial to club, especially when it comes to the gospel, because that message is connection. It's God connecting with man and sharing that message over a platform like Zoom. I was just afraid of what that loss would mean. I didn't want to miss that interaction that we had. So we didn't. We did reach kids through the mail, so we tried another way for a while, and that was good. But this past spring, when we still weren't having a lot of live programs, we did brainstorm and thought, like, let's try this. The Lord has given us this platform. We have teachers who are willing to be a part of a team. Let's go ahead and put it out there and see, just like we're trying this tonight. Like, let's just see what happens. And what I did not expect was all that God would do through it. I did not, and I know we're gonna bop back and forth some stories of some kids and some things that God did through that. I never anticipated that Zoom would be a platform I wanted to use, nor did I ever believe it would be something that I would say, like I do now, that is something we'd like to continue to have, even when we have live clubs again. We would like to continue our Zoom club, and I think that'll be evident throughout why we say that is true.
So a few things that God did during Zoom Good News Club. It was a step of faith for sure. It was something that, again, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, but we did it and immediately saw God working in amazing ways. The first week, this little boy we had no idea, had never met, he came on, and you could see the arm of a parent sitting next to him. And he's a little boy. He had a Bible and everything. So we thought, oh, he's from a Christian home, and those thoughts that run through your mind. And throughout the whole time, he listened. He was very well behaved. And when it came out to after the Bible lesson, he raised his hand saying that he wanted to go to the counseling breakout room to believe on Jesus as Savior. And he did. And later on that week, we found out that their parents are buying a vehicle from a pastor from our area and like was like trying to connect him to a church and all that. And he's like, well, my kid went to this thing online that's called the News Club, and it was that same kid. And so you could see how God was like going after that family. He's the only believer in his home. He's asking his parents to go to church. He loves God with all his heart, and he was there in Zoom Good News Club. We had no idea. And it was really cool to see how God had used a way to reach a kid that is the only believer in his home, with the gospel, and even his parents. Because like throughout the next couple of weeks, like the parents were in the background. Like, I don't know how long you need to stir pasta, but an hour is a very long time to stir pasta. It's just one of those situations. You're just like, okay, God is doing something in this little boy's home.
So we thought, wow, that is wonderful what God did. So we moved into our second week. Our first week, we were like, wow, that was smooth. I didn't expect technology to function for us. Breakout rooms, great. Well, just when you think you've got technology nailed, you don't. And the second week, it's like everything that could go wrong almost did. We learned the second week that kids can write on the screen if you have the wrong settings, like not protected. And they were drawing on the little baby Jesus right in the picture. And so it was interesting. That second week, we had new children join us again and taught the club. Had all the children who had come the first week had returned, so we had everyone back again. And we had this girl there. She's from further down east, and she had been a part of Good News Club before COVID began. Her teachers weren't part of this team, but she found it somehow online and got signed up somehow, and there she was. And we again came time to put that invitation out to receive Jesus as her savior, and she was just like, me, I want, like, she's raising her hand, and a couple other kids. And so I have the breakout room, and if you're familiar with using Zoom and having the breakout room or any of that, you usually you can have a participants column on the side of your screen, and you can see everyone there, and it lets you put people into the room. Well, this girl's like waving her hand. She's like, let me in. And I'm reading through that list of names of the kids, and her name is not on the list. And I'm like, I know she's there. And she's waving. She's like, let me, I want to believe. And I'm like, I know. And I'm like, I'm reading. And like, it's supposed to be a discreet moment, but I'm like reading and reading, and all the leaders are like texting me, like, she wants to come in. I'm like, I know. And the kids are starting to say, like, she wants to, and they're naming her. And I'm like, I know. And I couldn't do it. One thing we learned through that was to have co-hosts and someone else who could help with technology, and thankfully Lindsay was doing that, and she could see her name on her side and allowed her to go into the room, and she believed on Jesus as her savior. And what that showed me, I guess, is there's spiritual warfare. We know that when it comes to teaching kids the gospel and sharing how to believe, and especially that moment where that child is about to believe, it's especially fierce. And usually when things start going wrong about the invitation time, or even when you start talking about Jesus on the cross, I begin to pray, because I know there's a battle unseen. And that day, that battle was just in a totally new way, where we could not put her to the place where she could go to believe. She wasn't there. It was just in a whole new way. But I'm very thankful how the Lord worked that out, and she was able to go into that room and believe on Jesus as her savior on that second week of club.
We could go week by week through all the different things that God did, but one last one that we thought was really interesting was one girl. She was at a friend's house, and she had come to Good News Club when we had it in the school, but we've lost contact with her and stuff. We brought her to winter camp too, and all that. And so she was at a friend's house who was doing Zoom Good News Club, and so the mom that was there was like, could she join a screen? And we're like, well, here's the online form, fill it out, get the parents' permission, and she can. So there were in one house, there was 3 kids on 3 screens participating in Zoom Good News Club. And it was this one girl, and we were so excited to see her, because you COVID, but like then hadn't seen her. And the whole time, like, she's like intently, and she's reacting to everything, like God loves me, and she's like shocked, and she's like intently listening the whole time. And it's another one of those children that you don't know what the home situation is like, and you just pray that for her, and just that she would become, a believer. And she did. She raised her hand after the Bible lesson, like, I want to believe on Jesus as my savior, and went into the breakout room, and the teachers were able to guide her. She asked some very good questions, and things that would shock you probably because of just the society that we live in. But she believed on Jesus as her savior. She came for 1 week, and we haven't seen her again. And so even just that one time that she was at a friend's house and being able to reach her was a really special thing.
We were very thankful for this opportunity to have the kids and Zoom Good News Club. I thought I would miss the interaction, and I did miss seeing them face to face, although I'll tell you, I could see their whole face. I could see their smile. I could see them laugh. I could hear from them. They could show me their pets. That was new. They're showing me all kinds of things from their house. They're like, there's my dog and there's my bedroom, and you're like, oh. You get to see all those things, but we also were able to see kids who have never had a Good News Club in their community. And there's not laborers, there's not people there to teach that club for those kids. But here they were online, sitting, listening, hearing the word of God, having it change them. And that alone made it worth it. There are always going to be communities, no matter how long and hard we work, that just don't have that ability. And to be able to offer a Good News Club or a program for them where they can go and have caring mentors and adults to listen to them and to share with them the truth of the Bible. They need truth so badly. They need to hear, like, the culture is telling them all kinds of things, and sometimes all we can do is lay truth down beside that, because they're going to hear everything, and we can't even be there to help them navigate that. But we have that opportunity to go right into their homes and anywhere they are, to be honest, and share truth with them. So I think we're going to move into a little bit about how that kind of worked, just practically, some of the things that we did. So if you have questions throughout, though, feel free to ask them. You can unmute and ask, or if you want to type them into the chat, if you just want to pop it there. Either way, just so you know, feel free to also ask questions. But want to show them. Just gonna.
Okay, so how this all worked was, it was a learning process, honestly, and the schedule changed a little bit from time to time, but this was kind of a sample of what our schedule was and what our team looked like. You can see that it was shorter than a normal Good News Club, because the attention span of children, number one, it's very short, and it's getting shorter, especially as you look through the generations. And then we also knew that if it was in their home, we didn't want to take up a long amount of time. Now, some weeks it did go over, but majority of the time, it was within the hour time period. So we began with just when they came in, Jessie and I were the welcome people, also the IT people, so the tech, and we'd welcome them in, and they had a team color that they were put on. That was also their small group color and team. And once they came in, we welcomed them, went over a few rules. We put them into a breakout room where they had 2 leaders there already. That was their small group. And they could then just talk about what they've been doing. They had CEF puts together a small group time suggestion, of what you can do in a small group. They had that. Some did that. Some just had great conversation and just how you were doing. And that, I think, added a personal layer to the whole event. So that took about 15 minutes. And throughout that time, they came in, and we were putting them in breakout rooms and renaming them and all that. We then went to, at the end of that time, we brought them all back in to the same room, and we did Wonder Time, which is part of the Good News Club series. We did memory verse and then Bible lesson. And then between Bible lesson and review game, we gave the opportunity for the kids to go into a breakout room for counseling. And that again had 2 adults in there that would be able to talk with the children. And then at the same time, there was a review game. And then at the end, we didn't do prayer requests because we almost were always out of time. But what we did was we finished up with the contest that we did and looked forward to seeing them the next week. So that's kind of like a brief overview of what the schedule looked like. We did an hour. We also did Christmas party clubs, and we did an hour as well. And that seemed to be a good time period that the kids kept their attention. So.
Okay, so on there too, we had, she mentioned that we renamed the kids. So when you're the host of Zoom, you have the ability to change people's names. And so what we did is as kids came in, we changed their name to their name. Sometimes it was their parents' name or their parents' email. We changed it to their name so that the teachers could call the kids by name personally, could call on them when they had a question or were answering something. Because we wanted the club to be very interactive, it needed to be interactive to hold their attention. That also provided a way to allow the kids to participate. Hey, can you do this? Can you unmute yourself and tell me this? Or can you go get something and show me this? And they were able to do all of those things. It's also how we put them on the color teams too, which helped divide them for contests and games that we had. We had all the color teams were competing against each other, and it was right on the screen. You could see that their name and their color team was on there. So I just wanted to mention that because you mentioned renaming the kids. To keep it personal as well, I think you maybe mentioned in the mail, but maybe not yet. Maybe could we unscreen share for a minute? Okay, so keeping it personal too, we kind of almost made it a hybrid club in the sense that even though we were not live with the kids, there was an element that they were physically getting mail each week. Each of the small group leaders were given the names and addresses of their kids and the supplies to send mail each week. And so they were sending the kids quiet times, which are the Bible sheets that go along with the Bible lesson. So they got that each week. They had their memory verse slip in their mail and also a fun prize of some sort or an activity. So those were all flat items that could be mailed with a single stamp. I had like little, this is like a little puzzle. We had some fun stickers. It's kind of backwards on my side, but we had some stickers. One time we did something fun. I got popsicle sticks, like big ones, these big type, and we got some stickers of some facial features, and we mailed the kids each a popsicle stick in their team's color, as well as a part of the roll of stickers. So they had like mustaches and eyeballs and noses and like hats or something, some silly things. And we said, create a friend and show us at Zoom Good News Club next week. And so they all made little stick friends, and then they could show their small group leader. And that was just something fun they could do and then be a part of the community there. So that was one way, was that they were getting weekly mail with a personal note from their club leader each week. And so that happened for 6 weeks. And then when kids missed a week, we said, we miss you. And they still got that mail all the same so they could keep up with what was going on. And they were looked forward to their mail every week. Something fun too, we had contests, just like live Good News Club. And that was a challenge to think about. Like, how are we going to have a contest? The kids don't live here. I don't really want to send a ton of packages all the time. So rather than sending a bunch of packages all the time, we decided to do a contest that they would be earning cumulatively. And then at the end, they would get a package with all their treats. So on Amazon, we had ordered for us a prize wheel that we had, that I printed out some different candies and treats, and we had some mystery surprises, which was really like a handful of treats. But we were able to spin the wheel for the prizes. So we did that for behavior, incentive for quiet box, and siblings had to behave together. And they were all one box. And then we also did that. They were earning points for coming, for finishing their quiet time and showing it to us right on the screen. They'd show us that they did it, and you'd look at it like, okay, good job. They got it for that, for inviting a friend and having them come, and for their memory verse, which they did in their small group time. They'd show their leaders all that. And so if they had 3 points that week, or if they won the quiet box, then they would be a part of the spin. So we might have like 8 kids as a part of the single spin and give a spin, and then they had that prize. And then what I did is I was recording it on my end, who got what, and then at the end of the program, they got all of their treats that they had won for all the 6 weeks. So they got that in the mail. So that was just a fun way to continue to have a contest, keep enthusiasm up. The kids talked about the prize wheel all day that day, some of the families said, so it was fun.
Yeah, so another thing that we did was during the teaching times, so specifically the wonder time, the Bible lesson, and the memory verse time, we used PowerPoint visuals to help make it, to help, instead of the person holding a tiny picture, then the kids saw the complete picture. I'm going to bring up one of the things. We also used the review games, which are really cool. So the review games are things that you can purchase right through CEF Press, and you can use them in the live club even, and on Zoom. So the kids had a review game. So again, the colors are broken up, and the kids could, on this game specifically, they could choose a color, and there was points behind it. And at the end, whoever had the most points for their team won. Another thing that is good to know is, I'll bring up the Bible lesson visual, and you'll see this. So this was one of the first lessons where it talks about how kids are that you are valuable to God. And this is the situation that we were in. Okay, this is the exact situation. We had a child, it's called Anotes, start just writing all over the screen. You don't want that to happen because it's kind of weird, number one, because especially it was this image exactly that was going on. A kid was just drawing all over the place. So for that, I just was like, yeah. So what you gotta do is you gotta go over to more on the top when you share your screen, more, and you need to disable Anotes for others. And then you're able to just continue to teach, because that was
man.
Yeah, so just a helpful tip for that to shut off. It's called Anotes, Annotes, for others, and it's at the top of your screen when you share it, because that does happen, and kids can figure that out. Kids can also figure out how to share their screen, and so that's why we found out is key, that you should only let hosts or co-hosts be the ones that share the screen. So for the majority of the time, I was the one that shared my screen so that the teachers could just teach, and I would go through their PowerPoints for them. By the end of it, that they were comfortable doing it on their own, and so we made them co-hosts, and they would share their screen, and no one could write on it. The kids couldn't share their own screens, and so we kind of worked out those technical things as well. One thing that is very interesting is how to handle discipline, and classroom management. And honestly, we're not there yet. We don't really know, because you can't control what's going on the other side of the screen, even though you wish you could. We had 2 siblings. I'll say siblings. We had siblings, and they could not get along. And what they would do is they would unmute themselves and just start yelling. And you're just like, no. So for an entire Zoom club, 2 weeks in a row, I held my mouse over their mute button, and they'd unmute and I'd mute them. They'd unmute and I'd mute them. And so you'd hear and you're like, every once in a while, because they would try to unmute themselves, but I had my mouse right over them, and that was that person's job, or my person's job. And so that's another thing that would be important with your team, is just have someone who's aware of what's going on, but making sure that what's going on in the background is appropriate for everyone else, and keep an eye on that mute button because that can be an interesting situation. In the end, we knew the mom, so we texted her and was just like, could you please come in, intervene in the situation, because we've tried everything that we could on our end. And she did, and the kids acted better from then on. So they got the quiet box at the end, at the last week. So something worked in that department, but definitely something we're still learning with tech is how to do classroom management.
Very good. So there were definitely some challenges when it came to trying it this way, but there are also solutions when there's challenges. There's ways to just try things. We just tried things. Two is counseling time. When we thought about that, we did try a couple of different things. We actually, before the Zoom Good News Club started, we had tried 2 Christmas parties that way, 2 separate times, and tried 2 different ways. One of the ways that we had done was that, because you can make the breakout rooms, which are very useful. So I would prepare a breakout room, and we sent the kids out who wanted to believe with 2 leaders. And so we did that the first time, and it did go well. We're like, okay, well, let's just try. I know we tried another way, a second way too. I know that way did not work well. It involved them. We had tried to split the kids. They were a large group, and we tried to split them into 2 groups for teaching time. So we had 2 breakout rooms, and they were doing the Bible lesson simultaneously. With the 2 groups, just to try to keep their focus a little better for the kids. And I think that part went smoothly, but when it came time to counsel, we had to pull everyone from the breakout room and then send them back out. And at that point, they had joined the big group again, and they're like, hi, and they reunited with everyone. So like, I think they got distracted. And there were children who had wanted to go into the room, or who had indicated they had, but in the excitement of coming back together and there was a game coming up on the screen, it kind of got lost, and we thought, no, let's not. So even though the group was at times larger, we decided to keep them together and to have the breakout set up. So while the Bible lesson was being taught, I was setting up the breakout room with the leaders that we had assigned to be there. In our case, we had the Bible teacher in there and at least one other leader, occasionally 2, especially when it came to being a spouse. And that was just to continue with the child protection policy, and that even though we were, on screens, we wanted to be very careful that we weren't ever alone with a child, even in a breakout room, or sending them into that situation, or even privately chatting, which is another thing to watch out for. That's a setting that you can change so that the children can't communicate with each other, because they can send private messages to each other, and that could get bad for them. And also, though, to other teachers, and then it's word against word, just like normal, and you don't want to get yourself in those situations. So we always had at least 2 go into that breakout room, including the teacher who had just shared about believing, so they'd have that familiar teacher, and then another person to be there and to help that person. So that's how the breakout room went, and it did end up going well. The children would indicate, just like at Good News Club, that they wanted to believe, whether that was looking up, whether that was raising their hand, whether that was doing one of the reactions, like, hey, like I got on my screen right now, and showing I'm ready. And then we had myself and also another set of eyes looking and watching and seeing, and they would type me the names of who needed to go, and I would move them into the breakout room, and we would send them all to go. And even on weeks when we didn't have anyone respond, we still set up that breakout room and sent them out all the same, just in case. No one took us up on it later if they didn't already indicate they wanted to believe, but we wanted to follow through with that situation, that they were going to leave for a moment and that they could go, just to give them that opportunity to believe. So counseling time is very possible. It is possible to lead a child to Christ in their own home from far away.
Yeah, a couple things that helped also keep the attention of the kids throughout the time was interaction. And so we had the contest going, like the spin the wheel one, but also the quiet box, which is like the quiet seat, to help encourage good behavior. We also had the teachers aware and kind of encourage them to be very interactive when they taught. And you wouldn't think the kids would do it, but the kids did. And I mean, even up to the 12 and 13-year-olds. they would get up and pretend to climb the mountain, or they would, be like looking for something in their room, like they were doing all those things and they did it. One thing that was very interesting was when we did memory verse. And when you do memory verse, you have a time of repetition. And if you don't know this, when each person on the screen has a different internet speed, and I may be coming in a couple of seconds later than what another person is. And so when we repeat the memory verse, everyone unmuted and we quoted the memory verse. But it was, some started a couple seconds late, some were and so you had to have the leader that was confident and just continued on. And then at the end, once everyone had said it, you'll hear the last kid being like, and Jeremiah, da, 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 da. Okay. So just a warning, it's good. It's hilarious. The kids love it. It's all delayed and everything. But it was good. But it sounds interesting. I recorded one. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I recorded one, and it was really cool to see how the kids, like, they had a competition between the girls and the boys at who would be the most, they were doing like a snapping verse game. And it was a competition between the boys and the girls, and the boys were like getting into it. They were like jazzing on the other end of their screen, and the girls were too. But it was really cool to see how all throughout the whole time, like, they're doing memory verse, but it's all different timings. But by the end, they all did the memory verse together. So it was really interesting thing. So that was a really good level of interaction.
Can you share with them what happened when we tried to do a song?
Yes. So the plan was to do a song video with the kids. That didn't go well, to put it how it went, because of the different internet speeds that happen. I went on my end, the video was working great. You have to click a special thing that says add the sound. I did all that, shared the video, and all I hear are the kids saying, what in the world's going on my screen? Like, what's going on? So when you share a video, it like takes up whatever like juice of internet you have and slows it right down. So like they may be hearing the audio, but they're not seeing the visual part. So recommend not sharing a video if you're sharing your screen. But one thing that we learned was that you can have like a monitor or a TV, and you can turn your laptop towards that and show the video that way. It doesn't have the greatest quality, but it does show the video. We did not try it. We just gave up on that. We're like, no, we can't do that. But it did work out that not to do videos. But there was something else that didn't work, but go ahead, Kim.
Can I just add, because I did Zoom Sunday school in last spring, and we did do the video songs, but what I discovered was it works better if you have two laptops and you have the one that you're hosting on and you're doing all the work, and then you have the other one that you share the video from. And that worked okay, but I made all the kids mute so that because it was so like, the timing is all off, but that did work, but it was different. So anyway.
It is different. You would think, oh, we can sing songs. Like, we're just like, it's all good. Don't sing songs. It's not a good idea. If you're unmuted and showing a video, it's great for in person. So, but we did send emails out to the parents and stuff, and that could be added to it, that they could, if it was helpful to them, here's the memory verse song, that could be added to an email for the kids, for the parents too. So.
Okay. So Zoom made a couple of things possible. For one, it allowed kids to be literally virtually anywhere. And so kids were in their home, they were in their living rooms, sometimes they were in their bedrooms, sometimes they were in the car traveling somewhere, and there they were. We had some kids come from the dentist's office. They were sitting at the dentist, and they were at Good News Club. And those are things and moments that you don't foresee, but that happened quite a bit. But it made it possible. Those kids who were not home that day were still able to be there because it was important to them to be there. And their mom was like, I can't believe I scheduled the appointment during Good News Club. Like, she's like, we're going to make it work anyway. They're going to be at the dentist. I was like, oh, wow. And they were. So it was just really interesting. So it allowed the kids to be all over the place. They were hours apart. They were from both counties. We ended up opening it to both counties in our area and had kids from both. And also our staff were from both, which did allow us to have a very diverse team that we wouldn't have normally been able to pull together just because of proximity and location. They were from many Good News Clubs, and we had offered that out to our teams. We let them know we were going to be doing it and let them know that if they'd like to be a part of it, that they could. And so some did from both the counties and worked together. Lindsay had on part of a sheet some of the roles that we had involved. So maybe I could take a look at that.
Yep. I'll share my screen. There you go.
So yeah, below the schedule there, we have who was involved. We did have quite a large team. It is not necessary to have as many as we did. It was more so just we had the people and they really were eager to do something. And so we let them come and be a part. That means the load was very light on most of them. Lindsay and I ran technology for both the weeks. So Lindsay was mostly the screen sharing. She was sharing the PowerPoints for the teachers. She was getting them the materials that they needed. So they had that for that week. And she was the muting the kids. My technology role was a little bit different. We had our invitations for the kids. They were invited online. All the registrations happened online. We were able through CEF at the state office. They made us an electronic form and kids could sign up right there. We also had sent out hard copy postcards and put a QR code on them for parents to take a picture of and to be able to get to registration, and also as well as the address to, I guess, find it apart from the QR code. But we had the kids sign in. So what I was doing is those registrations were coming in and I was looking at who they were, putting them onto teams, and also letting them in because I know who had permission to be there. And if there was an unfamiliar name that should not be there, because we were sending out Zoom code just to families only. We did not make that public, not like this class. We didn't do that because that involved children and we can't just have anyone come in. So they had to register before we sent the code. However, there was still the possibility that that parent or family could pass it on without having registered. And so because of that, we always made sure to have the waiting room so that we could see who was coming in beforehand. And then that was my role, is I was allowing kids in who were supposed to be there and moving them around into breakout rooms. So it was very beneficial to have two. That would have been a lot of different things to try to do if it was just one of us. So you will definitely, if you're going to attempt this, I recommend having someone to help you run technology. Even today, we're having that. We have technology help. That helps greatly. But beyond that, just like a regular Good News Club, you'll see the roles are quite similar. We had small group leaders. We had set up to do 2 teams to start, but the club grew. And so we ended up adding a 3rd team and filled that team. We decided we didn't want the kids to be in larger groups than 8 kids, just because once you start getting larger than that, then you don't have that personal connection anymore. So we had, I believe we had 8 even who did that part, but it just depends on how many helpers you had. 2 of those were couples, so we added extra people. But we also had someone who ran the game, did the Bible lesson, just like as per usual, memory verse and tech. So we just did some basic roles. It wasn't anything that you're not used to for a Good News Club already, but just so you can get an idea, they could definitely dual role some of that. We just had a large group of people who wanted to help. So Lindsay and I did not do the teaching, we just did tech. So
if any of you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. You can put them in the chat. If you want some resources, we do have a few resources, I believe. Right, Jess?
Yes. Yep. I have for the small group time, I had made a sheet that they could fill in each week that I could send to you. It had, actually I can show you right now too. If I screen share, which I can email to you if you'd like, let's see. So this was something I had each small group leader have. They put the date. It also helped keep attendance for that week. And I had one person assigned in each small group to fill in the sheet, and they put the child's name and mark down what points they would get and write down any notes, prayer requests, and things that they learned about the child they'd want to remember in prayer. And then what I had them do is, because they were they all had cell phones apart from the screens they were using. So what I had them ask them to do was take a picture of it, and right after small group time, they would text it to me, and then I would record the points on my end and make sure that at the end of the club that they got their spin on the wheel. But this was something that they had each week. It also gave us the record of who was there, which is important for keeping attendance. So that's something I can send and share, though.
You can either put your email in the chat box, or you can send a message to Kim, and we can definitely get you some resources that we have. But if there are any questions, go for it.
I had some questions, but you answered every one of them all through it, so
Good.
worked well.
Good.
How many youth did you end up having? I mean, I realize you're still having club, but how many youth are you involving? This sounds like a fantastic program.
I believe, do you remember? I believe we ended with 22. Does that sound right?
I think we had
24.
We had
24 because we had 3 small groups like set up, and we maxed out the small groups.
Okay.
One. So 24 kids came, and they were very consistent. We only had a couple drop off.
And we only did it for 6 weeks, so we're not doing that right now, but do hope to do it in the future.
One of the things I hadn't thought of was the anode.
Mm-hmm.
Scribbling on the screen. I never would have thought of that, but yeah I get it.
Didn't either.
Grew on that baby. It's not good. Any other questions? All right. Well, feel free to. I know if you got this as an email, I know Kim is here. You are free. Oh, you have a question?
Nope. I was just unmuting.
Barb.
Oh.
It sounds really good. I feel a little overwhelmed. Like, I'm not very tech savvy. I had one of my kids help me to even do this whole Zoom thing, but like, how do you know how to even begin to do something like this?
Well, honestly, we sought out a lot of advice. We have a few friends that were just like, how did it go? What did you do? We actually, about a year before we did a Zoom Good News Club, we finished a Teaching Children Effectively Level 1 course on Zoom because COVID shut down our class. So we ended up finishing the class. We learned Zoom as much as we could in a week and finished our TCE 1 course. And actually those individuals, half of the individuals that are in that class, ended up helping us teach the Zoom Good News Club. So they were a little bit familiar with Zoom, which helped. So, and we had a couple of young people that were with us, and they're just like, oh, this is what you can do. Like, you can make your screen larger so you can see all the kids, or you can shrink it down so your PowerPoint's smaller. So we kind of just asked a lot of questions, and honestly, like, we would get on and we'd ask like another person to get on with us and be like, how does this work? Let's just trial and error, try to run through it a little bit. Like, okay, you can go to a breakout room. Can you leave the breakout room? What can you do in the breakout room? Can you still chat? Like, so it was like working through all those things with a small group of people and just trial and error, and honestly learning as we went. Because I mean, the anout thing, the mute thing, the co-hosting, those are all things we learned during the Good News Club time. So it's not something you can be like, this is going to run perfectly, because that's technology that does not run perfect. But I think it just like taking it step by step, if you try, I think it would work. But
I was just a little confused because you talked about QR codes and you know, different things like even to do the invitations and to know how to send it out and who to, I don't even know what to ask you, but it just
Right.
sounded very confusing to even get started. Like,
That's not something even that I did or could have did. In that realm, our chapter asked up to the state office. So like in your case, like Judy, that would be through Western Maine, and then asking, they would put a request through. But so in your case, Barney was able to make a form. And so all we needed were the questions. So we just took the online Good News Club form from online that was provided by CEF. We downloaded that, took all those questions, put it on one sheet and sent it off, and then they were able to make us an electronic form for that. So thankfully he knows how to do all of that, and that's not something that would be on your shoulders to do as a club. All you would need to know are your details for your club, and then that would be possible. So on that end, QR codes were just something that we decided to use just because some people like to do that with the pictures. So we sent them on the postcards with the QR code, and then with instructions though, because we did learn that it's not a familiar thing. It's still a pretty new thing to use these, but on a smartphone, if you go to take a picture of this code, then a link will pop up, and if you click on it, if you set it to the right site, then it will pop right up for them. And that's something that, again, staff could help with. If not them, I know that we could show you how to do these. QR codes are very quick. It's as simple as putting a link into copy pasting, and it will generate a code for you that you can use and print. So we did them onto stickers. We ordered them. So this code will always go to our Good News Club landing page. So no matter what we have there, whether it's a Christmas party or anything, this is gonna go there. So that goes to our website. But so if you're a part of CEF, like part of the umbrella, that's something that on a Good News Club page they could link and help you with that tech aspect. You wouldn't be alone with that. Definitely the biggest help tech-wise was the testing thing. The other thing I think was meeting with our team about the first like couple parties we did for Christmas parties. We met like an hour early and walked through, or even on another day, like the week before, the same day of the week, and walk through all the technology we're gonna need, every single thing, like, and then like piece by piece, like small group time. I'm gonna put you into your groups, move them in, like see if that was possible, like move them back. Then we like, let's see if you can share your screen. What pictures do you need? What we had to walk through each piece of technology to make sure that we all were on the same page and understood. And so I think communication was bigger than even needing to know how. Having someone who knows how to work the technology will relieve you greatly, but then also just communicating and working through it. So.
Questions?
Well, I would just say thank you to you girls for just sharing all that you've done. You've done well. But you do know a lot about technology, and that would be the one thing I'd say to you, Barb. You can't do this by yourself. You're going to have Joel and Joanna doing all the operations in the background.
Yep.
That'll allow you to teach like you know how.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think too, if you start small with just a little, try a few things, just try doing the Bible story in front of the camera, and then maybe you know you can do one thing, and then maybe try adding something new. Like, you don't have to do it as big and grand as, I mean, Lindsay and Jessie, you guys, it was incredible what you guys were doing. But you can start little and work your way up as far as what you do in the club.
Yes, definitely. We did start little. we did. And honestly, we are like, we're still learning, because like it's technology is still developing, and there's things we're gonna learn along the way. I mean, honestly, it's a tip of the iceberg, some of the things that we learned, because we're still learning it too ourselves.
So feel free, I guess, if you think of questions later on, you can shoot them to Kim. She knows how to reach us if you would like to just ask anything, or I mean, some of you just know already. So just feel free to ask anytime. But know this, that this, even though we have been in a time of limits, we've been in a time of loss and where it seems like impossibilities, there are a lot of possibilities. And the things that have been open to us during this time are doors that aren't going away. They're wide open opportunities right into the homes of kids, right into families, and the gospel, wherever it goes, no matter what means it goes, face to face, through the mail, through internet, is the power of God unto salvation, and is the message that is hope for our community, for our children, and it's what they need. So it's a wide opportunity. If that's something you're interested in, I'd say you should try it. But you can't lose just trying. You just try it and see what happens, and see what God will do with the possibilities. So it is possible with God.